I also can't really deal with Damien Hirst without talking about For the Love of God. After all, it was all over the media about 10 years ago. So this is actually a platinum skull set with diamonds, and this is one of Hirst's most important and widely recognized works. Now, we see 32 platinum plates making up For the Love of God. These are set with 8,601 VVS to flawless pave set diamonds, weighing a massive 1,106 carats. The teeth are actual human teeth, which we'll see in a moment. But I wanted to point something out. When we look at pieces like this, Damien, again, is not creating it. He's not a jeweler. He's not a metalsmith. So he's not going to be able to work with the platinum. He's not going to be able to set the diamonds. Instead, he's going to go ahead and have experts do it. He simply comes up with the money, about $50 million to do this, and he comes up with the idea. And that's really his focus. After all, he's acting here more as an intellectual than as a craftsman. Remember, we're separating the idea of craftsman from the idea of artist at this point. So, the teeth, as I said, are real, and in fact, the skull was real. It's a donated skull. It was used to mold the piece so that everything would fit together and work. So it's based on the original skull. The title originates from an exclamation Hirst's mother would have made on hearing plans for the new work when he was starting out as an artist. As he explained, she used to say, "For the love of God, what are you going to do next?" And so he uses that as the title. In this case, this acts as a reminder that our existence on Earth is transient. It is, at its base, a memento mori, and it must be understood as a memento mori. So it's a reminder of death, a reminder that we only have a limited amount of time, and therefore you need to do things now. It kind of keeps people moving. And by the way, I'll get to the baby skull in a moment. He also combined the imagery of a classic memento mori with inspiration drawn from Aztec skulls. And these are from sacrificial victims, where the skull will often be decorated painstakingly with mosaics, with a dagger in the position of the nose. There's religious significance there. The eyes are put in. We see the top of the head here is missing. But he's using this idea, the Aztec idea, and the Mexican love of decoration and the Mexican attitude towards death, which is much more accepting than our own. So when we look at this, we see a number of different ideas. So far, we've just looked at as a memento mori and questioning who created it, but it goes further. He explains of death, you don't like it, so you disguise it or you decorate it to make it look like something bearable to such an extent that it becomes something else. Again, that idea of us not wanting to be reminded of death, so we hide it, in this case, behind platinum and bling. Which is probably a technical term that... Anyway, in the face of the industry's ability to establish their irreplaceable value, it becomes necessary to question whether diamonds are actually simply a piece of glass with metaphorical significance, or whether they're general objects of supreme beauty connected with life. He wants us to question the diamond industry as well, because he looks at it, especially in 2007, when conflict diamonds are a huge issue, blood diamonds. He wants us to look at the cutthroat nature of the diamond industry and the capitalist society which supports it, as central to the work's concept. Hirst explains that the stones bring out the best and the worst in people. People kill for diamonds. They kill each other. But there's also an element of materialism here. The idea that you can't really take it with you, can you? I mean, sure, you can be buried with a whole bunch of diamonds, but it's not going to do a lot of good, and eventually some pirate guy is going to show up and dig it up. So you can't take it with you. It becomes the ultimate memento mori. It also becomes this focus on materialism, on what is and isn't important in the world. After all, I have yet to hear someone on their deathbed say, "God, I wish I had more diamonds when I was alive." No, they talk about time with loved ones. They talk about relationships. They rarely talk about bigger SUVs or better McMansions. So he's calling our attention to all of this. And let's move to the baby skull, because that's exactly what you think it is. That's the skull of a newborn. And there, it takes on different meaning, doesn't it? Suddenly, the newborn is no longer cute. Now it's creepy and covered in diamonds. And to be honest, newborns aren't all that cute. They're like little piles of baby goo. But I digress. When you look at it, that idea of both the memento mori, that death could come at any time, but also that idea of materialism, that we're having children and we're kind of training them into a materialistic, a consumerist society. Now, I'm being very careful here because I'm not saying capitalist. Damien Hirst is not making a socialist argument. But he is arguing that there's too much materialism, too much consumerism, and why are we bringing children into that? And by looking at the skull covered in diamonds, that becomes a very uncomfortable thought, doesn't it? The idea that as we bring children in, we're passing down this idea that you must have cooler things than your friends. Even when they're 3 and 4, you may not have had this experience yet, but 3 and 4-year-olds are constantly at competition. And you go, well, over what? Elmo? No, over birthday parties. It's like a nuclear arms race. Look, my classmate brought us to Jump Bunch. Well, we went to Monkey Joe's. Well, we went over here. You know what? When I was 4, I didn't have a party. I got a bit of cake. That's it. So, kind of looking at this and saying children are involved too, reminding us of that. And the fact that maybe, and this is getting a little dark, maybe we have a limited amount of time with that child. And so shouldn't we focus on the experience rather than buying them the latest Play-Doh toy or whatever toy is popular today? So there's a lot of ideas going into this. You could write books about this. But this is an example of that conversation we're supposed to be having through conceptual art. Now, even modern artists are working in this conceptual mold, and we're going to continue to work in this conceptual mold for much of the remainder of the semester. So be prepared for the fact that it's not always about the piece. Sometimes it's about the conversation. Oftentimes, it's about the conversation. By the way, in case you're wondering, if you have an extra about $125 million, you can buy For the Love of God. No one has yet, but it is for sale.